We got work to do.
Welcome to Highway to Hell, a supernatural podcast. I'm Kristen.
And I'm Christine.
And this week we're discussing Season 6, Episode 21, Let It Bleed. And this is the one where a demon kidnaps Ben and Lisa to get to Dean. And Sam and Dean are forced to join with an unlikely ally to free them.
Yeah.
Because I forgot about the details of this episode, I really thought that was going to be Crowley. I was like, oh, here we go again. Like last episode, they were like, we are never going to work with him. This is not okay, blah, blah, blah. And then the next episode right after, they're going to be like, actually, Crowley, we need your help.
Yeah, I could totally see why, because he's definitely, he would be an unlikely pick. It seems like kind of a natural one for that description, but it's somebody else.
Yeah. And I feel like that is something that happened in like season 4, or actually it would have been 5, where they did say something similar. And then just the next episode, it's like, actually, yeah.
So remember when we said we would never work with you?
Right. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I'm so glad we're talking about this episode. It brought up a lot of emotions for me, and I'm shocked that I didn't like remember this episode so vividly before, because I didn't cry, but I was so close to crying. And on top of that, I was just screaming. Like I told you earlier, I was just screaming while watching this episode.
Yeah.
Just like so many emotions happening.
Yeah. Well, and I watched it, I don't know, maybe a week and a half ago or so, and I texted you at like 11 p.m. after it ended. And that's like past my bedtime. I like my sleep. I try to go to bed at like 10:30. And so I was up watching it and I was sobbing. Like I texted you and was like, this was a bad idea. Why did I watch this episode right now? I'm like trying to go to sleep and I can't stop crying. It was a mess.
Yeah, especially that last scene. It really gets you.
It killed me.
Yeah.
It was really bad.
And you were crying right now, apparently, too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You're just always crying.
I do cry a lot. I won't lie. I have a lot of feelings. You know, I'm an Aries sun, but I'm a Pisces moon. I feel a lot. I feel all the feelings.
A lot of feelings.
Guys, so many feelings. All the time.
And on top of that, it is Aries season right now. Your birthday is coming up. So there's a lot of feelings going on.
Uh-huh. Lots of vibrations in the air.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I had been, I just briefly told you that it was from an episode of Angel. So we talked last time about, you mentioned that I was starting it back up again and going to watch it. And I think it was episode 8 or 9 that I just watched of season 1. And it's so interesting that it happened right now, that I watched this in time for this episode of Supernatural, because it's like the same thing.
Is it? Oh no.
Yes, it is. It is the episode where Buffy's in trouble. Angel goes to help her in Sunnydale. She follows him back to LA and meets him there. And as she's talking to him and they're talking about, their arrangement, they're not together anymore because Angel's going to go all batty. A demon shows up and they fight it, and they end up having to like track down this demon, and Angel fights it, but its blood gets mixed with his, and it makes it so that it turns him human. And Doyle's like, okay, well, now that you're human, the question is, what do you want with your life? And the next scene is Angel walking out into the sunlight toward Buffy and kissing her. And you're like, oh my God.
Yes, I just
It's
got chills because
amazing.
I remember that scene perfectly.
And
And
then
yeah.
terrible things happen. So they have a wonderful 24 hours together. They can do it without him turning into a vampire, a mean
Yes.
vampire. And they just have this like magical time together and they're like dreaming about their life together.
He eats peanut
And
butter in bed and loves it.
yeah, he was like, why didn't you ever tell me about peanut butter and chocolate?
Right.
So cute. So then they end up fighting the demon again and to kill it because he didn't actually kill it the first time. And it tells them that, you know, more demons and bigger things are going to come after them and come after Buffy. Like this is the start of something. And it really freaks Angel out. And he's not able to help her because he's not a vampire. He's mortal. And so he gets hurt really badly and all that stuff. So he goes to the oracles and asks them to change him back. And so they say that the only way they can do this is if they turn back time 24 hours and erase everyone's memory except for his, so he knows how to kill the demon and can take care of everything. So he does that and he goes back to Buffy and they have a little bit of time left, like 2 minutes before they're going to set time back. And she's like, no, that's not enough time. And she's like freaking out. She was like sobbing. And then he starts crying. There are tears. And they're like
Yes.
kissing and like holding on to each other. And then it goes back 24 hours and she remembers nothing.
And she's like angry at him, you know, because they were fighting, and it's just back to
Yes.
it's
And
so
the demon
it's
busts in and
so
he kills it real
sad.
quick. And then she just leaves and that's it. And I was like, I was crying all over again.
Yeah, that it gets me every time.
Oh, it was terrible. While it was happening, John was sitting next to me and I was like, I hate this. I hate this. Why is this happening? It was awful.
Yeah, no, I will remember you. That's the one.
Yes.
Oh
Oh my God.
man.
I know.
But that's so funny. That is so funny that
Isn't that crazy?
you yeah, it just lines up perfectly. I guess the difference really is that this episode it they get that moment at least, right? You know, like Dean doesn't get to really say goodbye to Lisa. I mean, kind of. He
Yeah, but
tries to
not
do
really.
that,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, not really. And he doesn't really get any input from her at all. It's just all based off of what that demon is saying, you know, and that's it. Um, and it's funny because I actually did think about an angel episode with this episode, and with the one we're talking about today. And I just remembered it because I went on the I Will Remember You page and it mentions it. It's a later episode. You have not seen it. And
Okay.
so, yeah. But no,
No
this one
spoilies.
is, I know, this one's really good though, too.
Oh
Oh,
man.
man.
Okay. Well, when I watch it and I cry, I'll know which one it is and I'll call you. We can talk about that one.
Yes. No, that's so tough, man.
I know. And I always loved Angel and Buffy. You know, they were easy for me to love and I wanted them to be together and I just love Angel. I have a soft spot for him. I know everybody's, you know, obviously a Spike fan and I'm a Spike fan too. I love Spike. But Angel's my first love.
Angel was my first love, and then I became a woman,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and
I get it.
now I'm a Buffy fan.
I totally understand.
um, that no, and that I mean that really does perfectly lead us into the conversation about this episode because I mean there's just so much going on. I wanted to double check to see who like wrote I Will Remember You, if there's any connection to this one. There's not. But we do have some really great like people behind this episode, Let It Bleed. It was written by Sarah Gamble. And it
Nice.
was directed by John F. Showalter, who's
Oh, yeah, okay.
we recently just talked about him because he did the one, not the one before this episode, but 2 episodes ago, which I'm
Oh,
already
Mommy
forgetting.
Dearest.
Mommy Dearest. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just looking at the list.
So, yeah, so a really great team. And yeah, I mean, that's all I have actually before we actually get into the episode. I don't think that there was any music.
No, they have a couple of songs credited on Supernatural Wiki, but I didn't even notice them. They're just playing in the background. So I guess for the sake of listing the music, let me go ahead and let you know what they have credits for. Um, let me see here. Okay, so one is called a song called Loudest Alarm by Scars on 45. This is the song that's playing on Ben's iPod that he's listening to when their house gets broken into by the demon.
Mhm.
And then a song called Smiling Faces Sometimes by The Undisputed Truth. This is the song that plays when Cass confronts Crowley about Lisa and Ben. So that's just playing in the background. So thank you, Supernatural Wiki. But that's all we had for this episode.
Awesome. Yeah. I think the only other like big thing from this episode is just all of the references to H.P. Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is a really big deal in this episode. And I'm actually not too familiar with his work. I'm kind of realizing I don't think I read him too much.
I didn't either. I really didn't. I mean, I feel like I've maybe read like bits and pieces, like we know who that is. We know what his works are,
Yeah.
but I haven't gotten into it.
Yeah, I feel like I should have just because like I have a compilation of like Edgar Allan Poe and like they're in my mind they're like related um
That's what I was
pretty
thinking of
closely.
too. But we were English majors in college and I think I had some assigned Poe and I had read some in high school. Like I've read Edgar Allan Poe, but I feel like I associate them too. Maybe I read a little bit of Lovecraft in high school. I don't know.
Yeah. But we do get a lot of we learn a lot about Lovecraft here,
Hmm.
or at least fictional parts of it of his
Right.
life.
Quote unquote learn.
um but yeah, let's jump into the episode. There's a lot that happens, a lot that goes down.
It goes
Um
down.
I literally just had my eyes on the name Moisha, and so, so I was gonna say it goes down.
I like that better.
Oh man. Okay. So we get the episode recap. Lisa. Man, we have been missing Lisa and Ben and everything, and so it's like,
Yeah.
oh well, they're gonna come back.
Hey, girl.
It's gonna end up really bad. But
Ugh.
we
I'm gonna
see
make
that
that sound a lot.
yes, definitely. We see that Lisa tells Dean that she's trying to get over him and essentially that they can't be a part of his life, especially the way he lives it, which, she means the hunter life. Dean tries to explain this to Ben, who is just upset that Dean is walking out on his family. I forgot about all of that total confrontation, and it is tough to
Mhm.
see again. We see Dr. Viziak, who Bobby had recommended Dean get information about dragons from. And Cass is in a war against Raphael and has been working with Crowley to go after Purgatory to help him in the fight, specifically to get those souls. Dean tells Cass to not work with Crowley and to trust him instead, but Cass just apologizes because he has to. And that's what happened right at the end of the last episode. So we jump to March 15th, 1937, Providence, Rhode Island. It is a very stormy night. A man is drinking heavily while typing away on a typewriter. A door opens creakily and the man's startled, and he gets a gun out of his drawer to investigate, and then nothing answers him. So he closes the door to his study, goes back to get another drink, when suddenly something flies into the room, breaking the window, and he backs away slowly from it, and we can't really see what it is. And he says, Please, we didn't know. I'm sorry. And then all of a sudden, blood splatters all over the manuscript he's been writing, which says on the front, Haunter of the Dark by H.P. Lovecraft.
Dang. I thought that was
Yeah.
pretty cool. I wasn't expecting it to go in that direction. And I liked the direction like of the episode at this point already too. That scene was shot like, I don't know, in a very cool way.
Yeah, it was very creepy. I thought it was shot well too, like seeing the typewriter, and it's just like very darkly lit, and it was very cool. I wanted to look up to see like how this dude died. Like, did he die in some grisly? Probably not,
I
honestly.
don't know. Let me do a quick little Google.
I mean, he was 46 years old. He did die on March 15th, 1937.
That's interesting. He was young.
He was diagnosed with terminal cancer. Very interesting. But that is pretty cool for them to weave in this story with, his real life death day.
Yeah. Good touch.
Uh, so next, we see Sam and Dean are sitting in Bobby's study trying to research purgatory, but Dean's too distracted. Sam tells him that at least he tried, meaning with Cass, but Dean is pissed that even though he did try, it did nothing. And on top of that, Samuel's journals are useless in figuring out anything about purgatory. Bobby comes down just then to tell them that Cass didn't just go down to talk it over with Dean, but he also stole Moisha Campbell's journal. Um, uh, which is shocking. It's very manipulative
Yes.
almost for Cass to have done that. Like, did he actually? You have to think, like, did he actually care about Dean in that moment, or
No, exactly. It is really unusual. I wouldn't have guessed that he would do that.
yeah? But good for the group that Bobby made copies.
What does he call himself? A paranoid bastard or something?
Yeah. I know. I feel like if this was like just a few years later, it's like he would have scanned in copies, put it on the cloud, you know.
Yeah. Uploaded it, taken pictures with his Adobe PDF like app on his phone.
Exactly. I want to see that, Bobby. Um,
Yeah.
So the guys soon clue in on an entry made on March 10th when Moisha went to talk to Howard Phillips, but Bobby explains he's also known as H.P. Lovecraft. Sam gets it right away, but Dean is like, I
A
have no
dummy.
idea. Not only that, but he's like, I have no idea who this author is. I was too busy having sex.
Okay, cool guy.
You're so cool, whatever.
I mean, even people who haven't read that much or anything, like a lot of people have heard of Lovecraft. You're just
Yeah.
look,
I,
being stupid isn't cool, Dean.
I was gonna say, I mean, maybe like, maybe we're three peas in a pod. Like, we didn't read Lovecraft because we were too busy having sex.
Exactly. We're like, I don't know. I've never read it.
So, Bobby explains that some themes prevalent in his writings include opening dimensions to let scary stuff in. So, they think he may actually know something. Very cool. Um, And it's very funny because we jump to Ben now. He is upstairs in his room reading some Lovecraft. He's actually reading what is it called? The Cthulhu mythos. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
Um and so very very apt with the theme of this episode. And then we see Lisa downstairs with her new boyfriend. And
Yeah.
they're like cozying up. She's gotten him like a beer from the fridge or something because they're watching a sports game on the couch. And all of a sudden, a man bursts in through the door, grabbing Lisa, while another person, who we later find out these people are demons, kills Lisa's boyfriend. And Ben runs up because he's heard the commotion. He saw this happen. He runs back upstairs, calls Dean, who picks up, thankfully, because he's not ignoring their calls anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And Ben hurriedly explains that they've killed Matt, aka her boyfriend, and grabbed Lisa. Dean asks who they are, if they have weird eyes, teeth, etc., but Ben doesn't see neither, and he asks what to do. Dean asks if Ben can get to his mom's room as he left a shotgun in her closet, and he says no. So Dean tells him to jump. And
Ugh.
he's just so like serious about this. He's like, whatever bones they're gonna break, that won't compare to what I'm sorry, excuse me, whatever bones you break, like jumping from this window, that won't compare to what those things will do to him. So Ben is about to jump when something breaks through the door and grabs him. And Dean calls on the other line, but instead of Ben, Crowley answers.
Ugh. Yeah, this whole scene, honestly, it really kind of freaked me out. Like, I wasn't expecting to have that kind of reaction. I've noticed about myself, there's something, like, I get really emotional and, like, upset when it seems like there's something happening to, like, families and whole families. Like, it reminded me of The Incredibles, where there's this scene that gets me every time, um, where the mom is traveling by herself on that private jet plane to the island to go like save her husband, and she doesn't know the kids are stowed away on the plane,
Mm-hmm.
and these missiles are shot off from the island toward her plane to take her plane down. And then she finds out that the kids are on the plane, and she's like radioing out to everybody, like, there are children on the plane, like, don't do this. And her husband can hear. And he's like, no, like, don't kill my family. And it's a very stressful
Oh my
scene.
God. I
I
don't remember
know.
that.
Yeah, it
That's
really
crazy.
freaks me out. So
Yeah.
I kind of had that same reaction here because, suddenly, like, and also this is Lisa's boyfriend. I think this is the same one she had when Dean came over and like Ben was trying to set them up. This is the guy she was going on a date with
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
because I remember his name.
Matt.
So she's been dating him for a while and he's suddenly dead and they're just like being kidnapped. And also Dean's voice on the phone, he's so like, he's not panicky, but he's just like, you need to do this right now, and like all business, and like
Mm-hmm.
working really quickly. And it was just like, oh God, this is terrifying.
It is. It's very terrifying. And I think that we'll get to it, but like later on when they're in person and he's like giving demands
Yes.
to Ben, that was crazy.
That was so crazy.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Um well, and then like this scene gets even more tense because Dean is now on the phone with Crowley and he tells Crowley to let them go, and Crowley just teases. He says Dean is in his way and he's keeping them until Dean has backed off on their work to find purgatory. And this is like the moment where just really was like, oh, this is amazing directing, because there's this beautiful camera work being done on Dean where the camera is just like really close up in his face, and it's just kind of staying with him as he's like walking forward, and then it starts like spinning around him, so you kind of like feel the tension and feel the nerves that he's feeling in talking to Crowley and realizing that like Lisa and Ben have been taken from by demons, you
Yeah,
know.
totally. I remember that part and it was really well done.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So they hang up, and Dean explains what's going on to Bobby and Sam because they were right there in the room with him. Sam asks if he thinks Cass knows about it, and Dean assumes that he does. So he's like not giving Cass the benefit of the doubt anymore.
Mm-mm.
Dean says he's going to go after Crowley and asks Bobby and Sam to stay on the H.P. Lovecraft research. But they tell Dean that of course they're going with him. And Dean's like, no, like you can't. They've got a big ball right now and they can't drop it. So Bobby asks how they're going to find Lisa and Ben. And we don't get to see them work out their plan. we just cut outside now to the junkyard. Bobby takes off in a separate car, and we see Sam and Dean using the hood of a car, another car there, to call Balthazar. Um, they've set up like a little ritual there to call him. So Balthazar appears. He is super annoyed that he's being called since he was busy drinking, apparently, some Dom out of Soprano's navel. And he's like still carrying the champagne flute with him. Um, and then Sam and Dean go on to tell Balthazar that Crowley is alive, that he and Cass are working together in order to get souls from purgatory. And Balthazar, we can see through him, but he just pretends like he knows all of this. He's like, oh, yeah, of course I know that.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
clearly full of it.
yeah. But basically, so that he doesn't look dumb in front of these guys, because yeah, he's been kind of taken advantage of here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it's not too good. There's something about angels and lying because Cass can't lie and neither can Balthazar.
Yeah, man, they're just bad at it.
Yeah. And Sam and Dean see right through him. Dean asks for Balthazar's help to save Lisa and Ben because he may have some shred of good in him. But Balthazar disappears without a true answer. And then we get a son of a bitch here.
Son of a bitch!
So Sam asks Dean to call Cass since he may not know anything, but Dean refuses to do so. And then we see that Bobby has actually gone to some H.P. Lovecraft expert, aka or like some fan, some super fan, since he has a collection of love letters, and he also has like around his room, like posters of this Cthulhu mythos and different things related to Lovecraft, and I think either other authors or movies as well. And Bobby tells him it must be catnip, meaning the love letters for the ladies. And the guy's like, "Oh, yeah, but I've been in a long-term online relationship."
Nerd.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah, it feels like Kip from Napoleon Dynamite. Like
Oh,
just
yeah, and La Fonda.
yeah. So Bobby asks if anything weird went down on March 10th, 1937. And the guy's like, "Oh, so are you working with the other guy?" And Bobby's like, "What other guy?" He's like, the one with the trench coat. So we know immediately it's Cass.
Great.
And Bobby says they're actually competitors for a rival magazine, which is a good uh,
Yeah. Cover up. Bobby's
excuse.
pretty slick.
Yeah, much better than Sam and Dean. Like, what was the last one that Dean made up? That he was an intern or a researcher from a university or something. It was
That
just,
was a particularly bad one. Yeah.
yeah. Um, so the guy, thankfully, is like not freaked out by that. He's just like, well, I'll just share the same information that I told the other dude. And he says that the night before they were having a dinner party with a few friends to perform a black magic ritual in order to open up a portal to another dimension. And Bobby asks if it worked. And the guy says there wasn't any mention of a demon coming out. And the worst that was reported the next day were hangovers. So nothing really there. And then he's like, "Oh, let me show you. Let me, read exactly what it was." And he gets up to get out the letters, but then finds them missing from the file.
Gee, I wonder who that could be.
Right. And what's weird is that he's super chill about it. Like Bobby just gets up and it just like realizes what has happened and just starts leaving. And this guy is just like, "Oh, well, I must have misplaced them."
Yeah, and not like, where the hell are my letters?
Yeah, probably worth quite a bit of money.
Right.
They're catnip for the ladies, so they're worth even more. Um, so yeah, um, that's all we learn about what happened. The dinner party doesn't seem. I mean, it's a little bit strange. These people doing a black magic ritual.
Right.
But nothing happened, apparently. So we then see that Bobby is talking on the phone with Sam, and he says that he did a little bit more research. Every guest that was invited to the dinner party was dead or disappeared within a year. So that is strange.
Mm-hmm.
So Bobby says that he's on his way to talk to a man who was there as a 9-year-old boy, actually the son of one of the maids, and has been in the mental ward ever since. And basically, Sam's like, well, why didn't he die? And Bobby explains, well, everyone who died or disappeared was invited to the party, but this kid was just like hanging around.
Yeah, was just at the house already.
Yeah. So Bobby asks how Dean is, and we see that he's busy torturing some demons for information and killing them if they don't give him what he needs. There's like 3 bodies on the floor, and he's like on the 4th demon.
Ruthless.
Yeah. And Sam asks Dean to chill out and take it easy with the whiskey and coffee and whatever else he's drinking. And Dean tells Sam to back off, since wherever Lisa and Ben are, that's 100% on him, he says. So he needs to do this, which is,
Okay, whatever.
yeah. So Sam steps outside and he starts talking to Cass, telling him about the Ben Lisa thing and basically like praying and begging Cass to bring them back. But Cass does not answer. And we see Sam like walk away and pass Cass, who's invisible to him. So we know that he has heard.
Yeah. Which is good. I'm glad that Sam alerted him because we find out that he didn't know, like Dean thought he did.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that just goes to show like Dean, there's a lot of like stubborn moments and
Oh,
coming
for
out from Dean
sure.
in this episode.
Uh-huh. This being one of them, digging in his heels with Cass and not wanting anything to do with him and just thinking the worst.
Yes, which it's, understandable, but also, um, they could have possibly not have found Lisa and Ben if they, if Sam hadn't done this, so,
Right.
just little things like that he needs to work on.
Yeah, just little things.
So we do see Cass going to Crowley. He is pissed off. He said that he told him not to touch Sam and Dean, but Crowley's like, well, technically I didn't, right? Like, your little butt boys are fine. Um, it's Lisa and Ben, and I'm not going to hurt them. And Cass says he should have talked to him first. And he tells Crowley not to hurt them. And Crowley says he'll do what he pleases. He's maxed out of humans to care about. And he wants to do something helpful instead, which is go find Purgatory. And then just then, Cass gets an angel call. So he, scampers off, disappears, and is instead summoned to the woods where he meets up with Balthazar, who confronts him about working with Crowley.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really ballsy of Balthazar. I kind of
Yeah.
was trying to figure out in my head, like, what level they are at,
Mhm.
Like, just because Balthazar was, like, working for Cass, does that mean that Cass has more powers than he does? Or,
Yeah.
Are they equals?
Yeah, because I think when we first met Balthazar, I got the impression that he was really powerful.
Yeah.
And they were maybe like on the same level. So I was kind of, I don't know, wondering about that too, just because of this dynamic. Um, I don't know. I mean, maybe there was some point at which Balthazar had like told Cass, okay, I'm going to work for you, like I'm in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, I definitely had thought before that they were kind of more on like equal footing.
Yeah.
If not even Balthazar being more powerful, like I just got that feeling.
Yeah, because I feel like the first time we saw Balthazar, he was just working on his own agenda. You know, he was just trying to get souls for
Right.
whatever reason. But then the next time we saw him, it was like, oh no, it was like this whole Titanic situation where he was already working for Cass, but we didn't get to see that in between. I don't think. And I don't think that we saw it in the last episode where we saw him agree, like, you know, to care about heaven and to agree to like fight against Raphael,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um which is interesting. Like Balthazar is very much, he reminds me a lot of the trickster, because, you know, Gabriel, he, for however long, had like left and decided to pretend to be the trickster even though he really wasn't. Just, you know, he had his own agenda. He was like, I'm out. I don't want to deal with this like drama between my brothers. And Balthazar kind of did a similar thing, except it was more like, instead of just having fun, he's gonna like profit off of the destruction of heaven.
Right. Yeah. He definitely has more of an agenda.
Yeah. So, um, like I said, Cass says that he is not, he denies it, and Balthazar laughs and says he's always been a terrible liar, which is like,
We
I wonder if
know.
the writers were like, yeah, Misha's not very good at this. Just kidding.
Or we
No,
just
like
have to acknowledge this somehow.
yeah, like this is how it's coming out. So, Cass says it's to win the war, but Balthazar says what will end up happening is Cass will intake all of those souls and then explode, literally taking a chunk of the planet with him. So he asks if it's really risk free, and Cass doesn't answer, but instead asks if Balthazar is with him or not. And he says, why not? And Cass asks how he heard at that point. And Balthazar explains it was Sam and Dean, since they're all worked up about the kidnapping business. So, yeah, just that Balthazar is playing a double agent here now.
Yeah, and this whole business about the souls going into Cass and making him explode
Hmm.
is news to me.
Yeah. Yeah, we didn't really get that sense last time, right?
No, they have not explained this before. So, I don't know. Now we're seeing some other like risks, like, aside from the obvious ones, like what we already knew about with what Cass is doing. That seems, I don't know. It's kind of a weird outcome. Like, it's not something that I would have expected could happen. And also, like, how possible is this, and why is Cass still okay with it? Like, that's another thing, and just another reason as to why this is a bad idea.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I don't know. It is strange because it doesn't seem like Cass is very well educated in how like the whole soul thing works, because it was really Crowley that like you know put him on this
True.
path.
Yeah.
Um so I mean, we could think that maybe he just doesn't know, but and maybe this is the first time he's hearing about it, but he doesn't seem very concerned
No.
to hear it.
Mm-mm. He doesn't. He's not phased. He's still just moving ahead.
So I don't know if it's like a kind of a part of like what we were talking about last episode, where it's like his pride. Like maybe it's a little bit of that, where he doesn't believe it, or believes just that like he can take it.
Right. Yeah. I would buy that, especially that second one, because I think we could see that he was proudful,
Hmm.
prideful, um, and was kind of thinking a lot of himself, and allowed other people to kind of stroke his ego. So I could see that he's like, that's a risk, but I'm the chosen one.
Yeah, he really feels like Neo, like the one, you
Yeah.
know.
Or like that scene in Harry Potter. I think it's the fifth movie. Um, yeah, where Romilda Vane is trying to get Harry, and Hermione's like, she thinks, she really like wants to go out with you, and he was like, why? And she was like, because everyone thinks you're the chosen one, and he's like, but I am the chosen one. She like hits him in the head with the paper.
I love that.
I know.
I think
me
it's
too.
actually the sixth one, but it's too
Yeah,
funny.
you're right. It's in the sixth one. So
His
cute.
delivery is so good.
I know. And I don't
love
think that part is that in the books. I think it might just be in the movie.
It's not. In the books, he's actually really, I think, put off by Romilda Vane. I think she's ugly in the book, is why. But she was really pretty in the movie,
She was really pretty. Yeah, I liked her hair.
So we're now with Bobby, who's in this mental ward, speaking with the man who was at the dinner party. He's very old. Um, he's just.
I'm sorry.
Are you laughing at the fact that he's so old?
The way you said that.
He is. He's so
very old.
He's like, if you Googled old
Old
he would
man.
come up. Yes.
Just holding it together.
Ugh, barely. So he says that they did their spell and they all said it failed. And he asks Bobby if he believes in monsters, and Bobby says yes. And the man's like, wow, that's great. And then he like leans in, he warns if he says yes, they'll go about locking you up in here. And then he says that the spell worked, except the demons were invisible, so nobody knew. And Bobby asks how he knows. And he says, because it took his mother, that she was completely different after that. She acted different, and she even smelled different.
Whoa.
Yeah. And then, like we learned before, that everyone just started disappearing one by one. And then Bobby says that he's sorry because his mom disappeared as well. And the man says that Bobby's the first one to say that. So that they just, they basically just locked him up and they didn't really care about him. It was very sad.
This scene kind of messed me up.
Me too. Honestly.
This sweet, very old man is, he hasn't had anybody tell him that they're sorry about his mom or anything this whole time. And he's like practically crying to Bobby and ugh.
Yeah.
Poor honey.
And he spent practically his entire life in this mental ward, essentially.
Terrible.
Alone. And he asks Bobby if he wants to see a picture of his mom and hands him an old photograph. And we're unable to see it at this moment, but we see that what's written on the back is Eleanor with a date 1935. And Bobby looks surprised. So, little mystery there.
Yep.
So we jump back to Dean, who is busy still torturing these demons. He takes a syringe of some like red liquid, and then he goes up to the demon tied to the chair in the center of the devil's trap. However,
dead man's blood?
That's but that's for vampires, right?
Oh, is that?
But does it work on demons? Maybe.
Girl, I don't know. That was just the first thing I thought of, but it might be vampires.
I wonder if it says on the wiki.
Let me see. I have it up. Let me find out.
Okay. I will continue while you look.
Okay.
So, as what always happens, as he walks into the devil's trap, a bit of the red chalk on the outside is scraped off, which the demon notices. The demon then attacks, and he's like choking Dean when Cass appears, killing the demon. And Dean, like the last scene where we saw him, he looked a little crazy, like crazy in the eyes, but he didn't look like this terrible. Like his eyes are like sunken. He has like dark purple under eyes, and he just looks exhausted. And he says,
Terrible.
yeah, and he tells Cass that he didn't ask for his help. Cass says he had no idea Crowley would take Lisa and Ben, but Dean doesn't believe him. And Cass says, that he thinks of Dean like family also. And he's done everything that Dean has asked. He's come whenever he's been called. And he says, has anyone but your closest kin ever done more for you? He asked Dean to just trust him this once. And he came to tell Dean that he will find Lisa and Ben and he'll bring them, but asks Dean to stand behind him. And that triggers Dean, I think, especially since he said, like, stand behind him, because Crowley kept on saying, you need to stand down, stand down. And Dean interprets it that way, right? So he says, like, oh, you're asking me to stand down, which is the same thing that Crowley asked. And Dean's like, no, thanks. I'll find them myself. And he tells Cass, you can just go crawl back to Crowley and both of you can kiss my ass. And Dean walks away, leaving Cass with tears in his eyes. Teary-eyed
Yes.
Cass.
Misty eyes. Yeah.
It's so sad.
I know. I know it was sad.
Oh, man.
Also, you were totally right. It's just for vampires. So I don't know. Don't know what that was.
Yeah, it's very strange. Maybe it was like some sort of, I don't know,
Yep.
red holy water or something. I don't know.
They
Who
hate the
knows?
food coloring.
Yeah. So yeah, this was very sad. And Dean turns around and Cass is gone.
It's just, I hate all of this.
I know, because like Cass is really like pouring his heart out to Dean here. He's telling him like, I think of you as family. Like you're my family and I do everything for you. Everything. Please do this one thing for me. And it's kind of true. I mean, Dean has never really done anything for Cass.
I can't think of anything so far.
It's kind of a one-sided relationship, to be honest.
Dean just takes and takes and takes.
That's right. And poor Cass, he's got nothing left to give,
But he's still trying. He's still trying.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's just like Cass has his own battles, and he's been saying this in the entire season, essentially. Like I have my own things that I'm dealing with in heaven. Like this is my war that I'm fighting. And meanwhile, he helped Dean out and Sam in the war that they've been fighting as well, like down on Earth. And so, yeah, that's just, I definitely see Cass's point. Even if we don't totally agree with his plan, Dean's not even giving him a chance.
Yeah, nothing.
So it's, I like really feel for Cass here. This was a part where I was like screaming. There's like lots of exclamation marks here.
Oh. Yeah, it was rough. That was a rough part.
But then we get so many emotions because we switch over here to Bobby showing up at Dr. Viziak's like cabin, and she lets him inside, pours him a drink, And Bobby says that he was actually able to find her pretty easily, that they weren't together for long, but he knows how she thinks. And he tells her that he knows what she is and then hands her the picture. And then we see it. It's Dr. Viziak, aka Eleanor, with her son, the man in the mental ward. And he says, you lied about your age. And she's like, yeah, only for about like 900 years. And this kind of like startles him. Like, I don't think he was expecting that.
I mean, that's fair. You know?
Yeah, it's a little surprising.
Yeah. Okay. Although, I don't know, maybe this is just me. I would suddenly feel very good about myself being able to bag somebody 900 years old. You're like, oh, I must be pretty special.
I really want to know that start, like, or that
I know
story.
their story. Yeah.
Because like it's obvious that she knew that he was a hunter. Um just because like he knows to go to her for like the blade and the dragon information and all of that.
Totally. Yeah, she knew.
So yeah, it is very curious, and like I do wonder what their relationship was. And they just seem so different too. It's just
Yeah. She's like very prim and proper and clean and has her makeup and hair done, and Bobby's Bobby.
yeah. It's so funny that like we've in this season alone, like we've had like three love interests for Bobby.
Who was the other one besides Ellen?
Um the lady who like his neighbor
Oh,
that
yeah. Wow, that
like
feels like
bakes
it
stuff
was
for
really
him.
long ago, but
Yeah, but it was at like the beginning of this season.
oh, yeah.
So yeah, Dr. Viziak is very different, Eleanor. Um he asks why she's there, and he explains like Eve came, she like raised hell, and meanwhile she's just been chilling for um you know 80 plus years, because at this point he's realized like, oh, she's 900 years old, she is the thing that came through
Right.
and possessed this woman. um and she says, we're not all alike, us monsters. And he's like, well, you're from purgatory. And she's like, well, I didn't ask for these idiots to crack the door open. She was just the one that happened to fall through. And everyone's lucky that it was just her. And she says that she likes it on Earth. Why does she think that she gave, or why does he think she gave Dean the sword? They were supposed to stop Eve and kill the dragons. And Bobby tells her that he needs to know how she opened the door. And she says it's not safe for anyone to know. So then he tells her that she needs to come with him so he can protect her. And she is like, oh, honey, you're just a man. I'm better protecting myself.
Yeah, and this was interesting because it threw me back to that line that Castiel said to Dean about him being just a man, but he's an angel. And I was like, that's interesting. That was just in the span of a few episodes, and it's basically the same line.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was just thinking about Dr. Viziak as you were talking. That kind of explains like her badass house and like her whole collection. She's had some time on her hands to get it all.
Yeah, that's true, because I definitely did think like when we met her, like, how do you get your hands on this like medieval fucking sword, you know?
Yeah, and have this like luxurious mansion with many leather-bound books. It's like
Right.
how rich are you? How did this happen?
Yeah, it's quite a lot. That is really interesting though, and it just the fact that like we had Cass kind of say that about him being an angel and being bigger, and now Eleanor, who's like, oh, like you're just a man as well. And it just makes me think of like, I mean, I think you have seen already, and we've seen through this, that the show has really expanded, um the universe, it just keeps on expanding. Like
Yeah.
season 1, it's just like these little folklore supernatural beings, Huckman and
Uh-huh.
ghosts, and now it's like monsters from purgatory and angels and demons and
Yeah.
and all of that.
And other religions,
Yeah,
and their gods.
right. And so it's like Sam and Dean are just like playing on other beings' turfs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
essentially, they're not quite as important. So yeah, it is very fascinating to see, and actually, it's something that I really loved about Supernatural. Watching it for the first time, I was like, it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've enjoyed that. It definitely feels kind of like a revelation every time. We're kind of like, every time it does expand and we get some new information, it's like, oh, that's cool.
Yeah. Well, back at Bobby's, Sam pours himself a glass of whiskey, but then just then Balthazar appears and tells him that he's going to live to regret this, but he's officially on their team. So he's just so flip floppy.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, I think where I ended up with him was that I did end up thinking that he actually was on Sam and Dean's side because he doesn't really trust Cass anymore because he's been lying to him.
Yeah.
Um so at first when he was talking to Cass in that previous scene, I was like I thought like, okay, he's just gonna go along with it, I guess. That feels a little weird for Balthazar because he I don't know, it seems like he just kind of I'm thinking of like 3 different phrases right now. You know all of my phrases. It's kind of like walking to the beat of his own drum is one of them. Tooting his
Mhm.
own horn, shit like that. All the musical instruments. But I he just seems like so independent and does have his own agenda. So,
Mhm.
I was kind of surprised by that even though I believed it. And then this scene came along and I was like, "Oh, that's more believable." Okay.
Yeah, definitely. And also, he probably does feel a little bit nervous about this idea that Cass is going to be taking in all of these souls. Like, even if he is successful and doesn't blow up, um, it would mean that Cass would have a lot of power. And, like, does he actually want that? You know?
Yeah, for sure. And I hadn't thought about that. Like, I had thought that maybe he was afraid that he wouldn't be successful, but then also, what if he is successful?
Yeah. And I don't he doesn't seem yeah, he doesn't seem at all like interested in any of the power. Because if that was the case, then he would have, I think, like used these weapons, the gods' weapons,
Hmm.
to his advantage. Instead, he's just like bartering them off and,
Right.
you know, not really doing anything with
And
them.
doesn't care about them.
Right.
Hmm.
So we cut to Balthazar talking to Sam and Dean, and he's already explained what is happening, what Cass is doing, what his plan is, and he shared his concern about Cass swallowing all the souls, which he calls nuclear. Balthazar has found them, but meaning Lisa and Ben, and however, he cannot get to them. Crowley has apparently angel-proofed the entire place, which does not seem to bode well for the Cass and Crowley relationship, which is a very good
Yeah,
clue
true
in on
that.
that. And hopefully, I think, gives Dean a little bit of clue, like he can trust Cass maybe a little bit more.
Yeah. Like if that's not going well and Crowley's keeping him out, then maybe Cass doesn't know everything.
Right.
Hmm.
Um, so Balthazar takes Sam and Dean to the location, but from there he's like, "You're on your own," and he just disappears. So we see this like huge warehouse. A demon walks out to look out, and Dean kills him with a hunter's knife. And then the two, Sam and Dean, head inside the warehouse. They split up, once they're in this like large room, and Dean goes downstairs to like the basement level. Meanwhile, Sam is like knocked out and dragged into a holding cell, just like put aside. And then we see Lisa and Ben tied up while a guard watches. And the two that have gotten to Sam come through the door. They start then like hearing noises outside the room. And one of the demon goes to investigate. And we stay in the room with them. So we're just like hearing these noises
From
with
outside.
everyone.
Yeah.
And the noises like continue and they get like more violent. And so the other two demons go out to look as well. But those demons are like, kicked through the door. And Dean walks in like a badass, having killed the two demons.
Yeah, just like fighting his way to Ben and Lisa and just shows up in the doorway like fucking Superman.
Yes.
It's
It's
awesome.
beautiful. Chef's
It is.
kiss.
Mhm.
Amazing.
Molto bene.
So he unties them, but then Lisa grabs the hunter's knife from Dean, puts the knife to Ben's throat, and her eyes turn to black. So this,
No.
I
I
know,
was so
this
upset.
demonic Lisa says, since Crowley thought he may come, he had the demon jump her. And then she starts talking all of the shit, and Dean tells Ben not to listen. But of course, like, it's getting to Dean also.
Yeah,
Because
because
the
it's like
demon,
really cutting deep.
oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, because like some of the things that besides this one thing that I was gonna say is like you're like not good in bed, like things like that
Yes.
to
Oh.
Dean. And then really messed up things to Ben, like I didn't want you and stuff like that. Like, oh,
Yeah. It's fucked up. And it's like the way the demon's talking about it is like, I can see inside your mom's head and this is the truth.
right.
Oh.
Yeah. And then the demon goes, "What? I was just going to tell him that you're his real daddy."
Ah!
And then Dean just like, oh God, he just looks over like, "What?" And then Demon Lisa laughs and she's like, "Just kidding. Who knows who your real daddy is, kid? Your mom's a slut."
Oh, that was fucked up. That was so fucked up.
It was so messed up. Yeah,
I was
I was
shocked.
uh I was
And
I was dying, yeah.
I know, and also like I don't know, a way to play with our hearts because also like some little part of you always kind of hopes that that's true and Dean is his real dad. And then they
Yeah,
kind
it
of
got
tease.
me.
Yeah, it's such a tease. And then she's like, just kidding. And you're like, fuck you.
That was 100% my reaction too. Yeah, because I wanted it to be true so bad. And I think Dean did also,
Yeah.
I really think he did. Dean throws holy water in her face and Ben manages to run away. And the hunter's knife is thrown from her hand and he grabs it, but he puts it away. So he's been killing all these demons like this entire afternoon or day, but he's not going to kill her, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
He starts reciting the exorcism rites and she grabs a tool just then and stabs herself. And the demon says, "Exorcise her now," and she's just a dead meat suit. But Dean, I think he obviously realizes this. He understands that. And he does take like one brief moment, but then he just continues. Like he's got all of this pain on his face, but like that's all he can do at this point.
Yeah, it was still the right decision.
Mm-hmm. And he continues the ritual, and the demon shoots out of Lisa's mouth. She falls to the floor, and Dean tells her to put pressure on the wound because she is conscious. And Dean calls Sam, but his phone goes to voicemail. So Ben just looks stunned, and he won't answer. He's just staring at Lisa as she's bleeding out. and Dean slaps him and tells Ben to grab the gun, and if anything comes after them, he needs to shoot.
Oh, God. It made me wonder, like, if this kind of moment had ever happened with young Dean and young Sam, like their first time. And maybe it wasn't this intense, like you know, they had already kind of had the situation with mom happen. And so, I don't know, maybe it wasn't quite like this, but having John having to kind of like slap some sense into them or something, just to get them to move and not die.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, especially with Dean. Like maybe not Sam, but like I can imagine that that's how it was with Dean.
Yeah.
Um and even thinking back to um the very first episode, like the pilot, we see a little bit of that too, where, you know, John has to like yell at Dean to grab his brother and run out the house. And it's not quite as much as this, of course, but um, I think what was so interesting was like Dean went from like 0 to 100. Like he
Yeah.
wasn't like Ben, trying to shake him like, "Are you okay?" or like whatever. He was just like immediately like, "No, I need to slap you out of it
Yeah.
so
You
that
needed to
we
get
can
it
save your mom."
right. You need to get it together immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, and this, like Hunter's guidance does continue because Dean picks up Lisa and they start walking through the warehouse, and a demon comes out and Dean yells at Ben to shoot, and Ben shoots and kills the demon, and Dean keeps on walking, but Ben just stays there staring at this dead body, like stunned because he killed this person. I mean, even though it's a demon, it's still a person.
Yeah.
And Dean yells at him to pull it together, and he yells at him really bad. He
Hmm.
there's like that. Jensen's like amazing in this part because he just sounds so angry, and he says like, do you want your mom to die?" He tells him. And so they continue, and we hear more gunshots, and they walk past the room that Sam was thrown into. Sam calls out, and they get him out and are able to all take off in that moment.
Yeah. So yeah, I think what also kind of messed me up for the rest of that scene was like when they're on their way out, you hear those other gunshots and you know again that that's Ben like covering them and shooting more. So
Yeah.
that kid had to grow up real fast in about 5 minutes.
Yeah, it does it does really like make me think about, Dean's choice at the end to
Yeah.
have them forget everything. It's hard, but I don't know, maybe it is the right choice because it's just messed up. I think I would have liked a little bit more from Ben to see like how he was feeling after that, because it must have been just horrible.
Yeah. And all we get is, something pretty brief. But he doesn't talk about it. It's like he's angry.
So the next morning in the hospital room, Lisa is lying asleep, but she's alive. Dean tells Ben that he's sorry and he leaves. As he does, meaning Ben, because he's just pissed off, he just like leaves the room. And as he does, Dean sees that Cass is actually in the room, and he tells Cass it's a little too late for him to help. Cass walks over to Lisa and lays his hand on her forehead, and he tells Dean that she'll be fine now. We see Dean getting teary eyed. He's so thankful that Lisa would be fine. And he says thank you to Cass, but that it doesn't change anything. And Cass says that he wishes that it changed, you know, everything also. But that's all he wanted to do now. And he's about to walk out when Dean stops him, and he tells Cass there's actually one more thing he could do for him. I know. So we cut to Lisa waking up. She looks concerned, but Ben tells her to calm down. We don't see Dean in the room anymore. She asks what happened, and Ben explains that they were in a car crash, but everything's fine. And Dean walks in, and they look at him really confused when Ben asks, "Who are you?"
Ugh. God, as soon as he asked, I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
Oh.
And Dean looks down and he says that he's Dean, the guy who hit them. And oh, it's so good. With tears almost in his eyes, he says that he lost control for a second and he just wanted to say he's sorry, but that he's glad the two of them are okay. And he's just happy that they can get their life back to normal. And Lisa says that's what's important. And Dean tells Ben to take care of his mom and leaves the room. I mean, he like yells, he like commands him, like, "You take care of your mom, kid."
Yeah. Yeah.
And I have in uh, full capital letters, "So close to crying, I'm dying over here." Meanwhile,
Yeah. I was a mess. And John came in and saw me like crying, and I was like, he lived with them for a year. Do you remember the life that they had together?
has he
like,
been
that's so
watching
messed
enough
up.
of this to like understand
He gets bits and
what's going on?
pieces, and he was like, oh yeah, I remember that. And I was like, ah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Um
And I don't know. I mean, I think I struggled with it because from Ben's point of view, like what we were just talking about and the traumatic experience he had, I get it. You know, being able to take that away for a kid, you would do it. You would do that.
yeah.
Absolutely. Um, but on the other hand, for Lisa, taking away the memories that she had of you completely, there was love there. She also loved him for a long time before they even got together. You know, it seemed like she always wanted that. And then they had that opportunity. And although it was kind of crazy, I know they had good times. And like, I don't know how I would feel about somebody without my consent taking away the memories that I had of them.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I think you bring up a good point. She's an adult and she should be able to make that decision
Mm-hmm.
for herself. I think that is where this kind of differs from like the Angel Buffy situation. Like Dean did this, obviously like to protect them, maybe. That doesn't mean that they're going to be protected though. Like it's not like
True.
them knowing about demons or whatever is what like had Crowley come after them. Like Crowley came after them because. So that can still happen.
Mm-hmm. And then they just wouldn't
It's
know anything, and they wouldn't know him. They wouldn't know to call him, or
yeah, it's if anything is more dangerous.
good point.
But he's just so worried about her her feelings, because of the things that like the demon had said, like she wishes she never met you and she can't get over you and things like that. Whereas like with Angel, like he did unfortunately have a good reason, like he needs to save the fucking world in order to go back. So
Yeah, and he was also
yeah.
talking about how, I mean, this. I'm gonna cry all over again. This got me. When he was talking to Buffy, she was like, why are you doing this? And he was like, because I realized more than ever how much I love you. And he felt like he had to do it to protect her too, because he was no good to her as a mortal. And if he stayed that way, then one of them was going to end up dead, and he couldn't let that happen. And it was like, ugh,
Yeah.
I guess, man.
Yeah. So,
And she kind of got it. Like Buffy, even though he didn't have that long to explain to her, like she understood, but she was just so upset that they didn't have any time together. Like she asked how much time they would have, and he was like, about a minute. And then she was like, what?
oh my God. That part kills me every time
It
when
was
she
really
asks.
sad.
Yes. I do cry at
She's
that
like,
part
no,
because
that's not enough time.
that's
No.
not enough time. And then Sarah Michelle Gellar is so good at crying.
Oh, she's
I
such a
can't.
good crier. Just seeing her little face, I was just like, oh God. And then the camera turns to him and he's got tears. My heart.
You need chocolate ice cream after this.
Chocolate peanut butter ice cream.
Oh.
Fuck, man. Yeah, but I
Well,
mean, that's true. That's a really good point. I, debatable, Dean. That was a really big decision to make, and I obviously see some parts of it and understand why. But yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest part for me that was just a little unsettling, was because, yeah, she's an adult, and even though you want to be able to take that away for somebody, she might not want that.
yeah. And that's exactly what Sam tells him too, you know? But
Yes,
he's not listening to it because he goes outside. Sam's waiting for him at the Impala. He tells him, like, you've done some shady shit before, but this is the worst, he says.
it is.
Yeah. And I think, it's funny though that he says it that way, but it must be because, like, Dean is a compulsive liar. Like, he's always lying to Sam for his good. Um, just recently he was lying to him about his soul and all of that, having not had a soul.
Yeah.
So, all of that always goes bad. And Sam is like the first to know that. So, yeah, Sam tells him this. And then Dean just says, if you ever mention Lisa and Ben again, I will break your nose.
And he's dead serious.
So serious. And Sam looks stunned. And we see, but we see that Dean is teary eyed again. There's, like, tears welling up in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And so Sam agrees to just leave it alone.
I mean, I agree with this and I don't, again, because I know Sam's trying to be a good brother and kind of like, respect Dean in that way, to not bring it up again. But also, it's highly questionable and a huge decision that Dean just made. And does he's and after that he gets to just have everybody never mention it again. He gets to get away with it, basically.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about that. And I was left with a lot of questions about whether or not we would see Lisa and Ben again, if maybe they ever get any memories back, if it's brought up for Dean again in a way that he didn't expect, and it could be bad.
I think why it's so hard in general, or overall, is just like because Lisa was so perfect. Like, she was just perfect for Dean, and they just had such a beautiful love. And Ben, like, even if Ben wasn't his biological son, he was like his spiritual son. Like, he was his son,
Yeah.
and now that's just all lost, because of Dean wanting to protect them being stupid.
Yeah.
So,
And, weighing some more of it, like, I kind of understand that what happened was Dean's worst nightmare. You know, we know that that's exactly what he never wanted to have happen. He tried so hard to protect them and make sure that they were okay. And he always was like carrying around this guilt of something possibly happening to them.
Right.
And so that was his complete worst nightmare, and it happened, and he definitely like can't forgive himself now. But maybe he sees that as like a way to make it right. But that's just in Dean logic, you know? Like once again, it's just I don't know, he's taking liberties.
Yeah, definitely. Um, well, and just to finish out the episode, we see Eleanor walking out to her car when Cass appears behind her, touches her shoulder, and then disappears with her.
Damn it.
So now he's got her.
Great.
Yeah. Maybe she
should've
should
gone with
have gone.
Bobby.
Right.
You were
I know.
Jinx.
Yep. We're thinking the same exact thing. So this episode had one son of a bitch. It had two. I counted two Dean tears because like the hospital room scene and then when he comes out to the Impala.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you maybe see like where I was thinking of ranking it, but it's up for discussion.
I do see.
Because I was just, I don't know. I was like, this is a great episode. And it was a struggle for me because like some of, I really love some of the other episodes underneath my proposed placement.
Yeah.
But then I zoned in on The Devil You Know, which is season 5, episode 20. And that is the one, if you don't remember, where we meet up with Crowley again and we deal with like all the hellhounds. And I think we just loved it because it was like really actiony and like really exciting. But there wasn't a lot of emotion in that episode. And so I just felt like this one for me fell above that one. And then that's right now number 11. Number 10 is Weekend at Bobby's, which is the one we just talked about actually too.
Yeah. I also, really love a lot of the ones below that. But honestly, I was kind of thinking around the same thing before you even clicked on that. Or even potentially like number 10. But it feels kind of as important or, impactful as those.
As Weekend at Bobby's. I think, that one wasn't maybe super important. It was just like such a great Bobby centric episode where we got to see like the day in the life in Bobby's world. Hey Bobby's world. And but at the very end, like we see like Sam and Dean don't give a fuck about him, they're just using him for whatever they need. And I don't know, that was a great episode.
It was a good
but
episode.
I think a case could be made, and I would need to look up that episode just to double check that this one has more of an impact.
Yeah, I was kind of looking at it right now, and that's the one where they find out about Crowley's son and use him because he hates Crowley, his son hates him. They interrogate him and find out where Crowley's bones are and use that to get Bobby's soul back.
Oh, yeah. And this is the one where like Sam and Dean go to Scotland.
Yes.
All of a sudden.
Yes.
Like, what?
Yeah.
You guys are in Scotland?
Green screen. Yeah.
um,
So I don't
yeah,
know.
I kind of think this one's better than that one.
And maybe too, it kind of comes down to, I mean, obviously we loved that episode. So, it's hard to kind of nitpick it, but this episode was also just directed incredibly well and like shot beautifully and just presented really well. And when I think about Weekend at Bobby's, like, there were some fun parts and it was pretty good, but it wasn't as like artful.
Mhm.
Um, and
that was the first episode that Jensen has ever directed.
Weekend at Bobby's.
Yeah,
Well, he did a great job.
he did. I thought he did a great job. But I hear you. Yeah, I agree with you. And yeah,
I
man.
I kind of I kind of like it better. And then the one above that, let me see. Number
The
9 is The
Rapture.
Rapture. Yeah.
I think I love The Rapture more than Let It Bleed.
I
That's
agree.
like Cass's origin story.
Mhm.
You know, we meet Jimmy. That was a lovely episode.
That was a lovely episode. Okay. Yeah, I agree. Not to go past
Wow.
9.
Not to go past 9, but like, I mean, after having such a bumpy road with season 6, I am happy that we have, at least one now that's in the top 10 and just barely, or almost 2 is what I mean to say. That
Yeah.
are close up there.
Yeah. It was just really, really well done. And although it ended in a way that I hate,
Yeah.
there's a lot to think about there, and I really understand why it went the way that it did.
Mhm.
And man, it was a roller coaster. Like, I think that's part of why I love it too. Like, again, I really liked Weekend at Bobby's, and there was a lot that happened, and it was a really great episode. But this, like, really pulled you completely in like all directions.
Yes, definitely.
It was very effective.
It was. Yeah, it really had me on the edge of my seat. And I loved all of it. I loved the side story of like Bobby and Eleanor, and I just wanted to know more about that.
I wanted
So
someone to
yeah.
give the very old man a hug.
Yes, me too. I wanted someone to
God.
adopt him and
Can
give
I
him the
adopt him?
childhood that he never had. Uh, yeah, lots of emotions in this episode for sure. So I think it fits. I agree with that. That means that Let It Bleed, season 6, episode 21, is going in as a new number 10. And this one's going in the trunk.
Wow.
Yeah, so we just have one last episode left for season 6. And that episode is called The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Which is a classic movie I've never seen. However,
Oh, is it?
it is. However, I have seen the Bill Murray movie, The Man Who Knew Too Little, which is really good, actually. If you want a funny Bill
That's
Murray movie, I highly recommend.
cute.
Yeah. It's
I
a
don't think
good
I've seen that.
it's a good premise. He goes to visit his brother in England, and he gets set up on what they think is like a live theater thing for him to go do for an evening. Like they're actors who like take you through the city and like have you in this like pretend, I don't know, setup for the evening. Except that he gets pulled into an actual crime and doesn't realize it. So the whole time he thinks everybody are actors, but it's real.
Oh my God.
And he just ends up being this like, you know, crime fighting genius because he's not taking any of it seriously.
That actually sounds hilarious.
It's really funny. It was one of my favorites.
I need to watch that. I love that. That's very like, I don't know, like Mr. Magoo type of humor. Like just, that's a lot of fun.
Totally.
You guys can, of course, find us on social media at Highway to Hell Podcast. You guys can write in to highwaytohellpodcast@gmail.com and let us know your thoughts on the episode. Let us know your thoughts on the finale, on season 6 as a whole, because when we talk about the wrap-up episode, we're going to go over all of it, and we want to know your thoughts. Like, did you like season 6? How did you feel about it? Because I am really curious to know that. I think the experience of watching it like one by one, like we've been doing, has been so strange because it's like kind of dampened season 6 for a bit, but now it's like, whoa, like these episodes are amazing and I'm all over the place with them. So I want to know everyone's thoughts on season 6. And yeah, that's I think pretty much it. So until next time, you can see us on the Highway to Hell. Bye.
Bye.